Hey everyone, it's Joel McDonald, and I've got Andrea Warner here. Andrea has been a JGOOT subscriber since the very beginning.
Yay.
And she's kind enough to join us and share some pictures from her Croatia trip. Why don't you introduce yourself, Andrea?
Okay, sure. My name's Andrea. I'm a single mother of 5 children, and I realized several years ago that, well, I have to have something to look forward to, and travel makes me so happy. And so I've kind of evolved to the point where I prioritize travel kind of above anything else that I buy. And so I usually go on an international trip every quarter. And people are always like, how do you do that? And it's thanks to Joel and Jacob that I'm able to do that.
Well, thank you for that. Well,
Oh,
we're really excited to hear about all of your travels. And
yeah,
what's
one
that?
other thing. I want to tell you one thing I'm really excited about. Well, I'm excited to kind of spread this message. I heard somebody not too long ago say, look at your bank account and where you're spending your money. That's where your heart is. And I looked at my bank account and I was like, my heart's not at TJ Maxx. And that was a couple years ago. And since then, that's really helped me prioritize because I think, would I rather spend $100 at TJ Maxx or would I rather pay for a third or a fourth of a trip to Europe? And then it's a no-brainer.
And that was where you kind of caught the bug of travel, right? Your first trip was, where was it?
Well, I've actually had it for a long time, but just didn't think it was accessible for somebody like me. And so, I mean, everybody wants to travel. Well, not everybody, but most everybody wants to travel. But I didn't think it was doable. And so I first caught the travel bug, well, honestly, when I was 18 and did a study abroad in Mexico. But it got really intense, really serious, probably 5 years ago.
Nice. And so what was it that changed? It was that mindset of just kind of making it a priority, and then all of a sudden you just started traveling more.
Yeah, well, I had old school thinking where you assume a flight's going to be $1,500 and you assume you're going to have to pay $200 to $300 a night for a hotel. And so for me, that's like every 3 years I'm going to be able to do a trip at that rate. And also the length of time, if you're going to spend that much money, you need to stay for a reasonable amount of time. But like this week, I call it a long weekend, but my daughter and I are going to Dublin for 6 days, which is really pretty short, all things considered. But we only paid, it was like $317 for our tickets round trip. And so you can do stuff like that. And we'll definitely have at least $317 worth of fun on this trip.
That's great. Well, so I love this photo. Thanks for giving us this little intro of your family. Very impressive, beautiful shot. Let's look at some Croatia pictures, and you can tell us a little bit about your trip.
Okay, I'd love to. It was so fun. I can't wait to talk about it.
And by the way, so let's just have our viewers chime in, make sure you guys are hearing us. Let us know where you're calling in or where you're listening in from. And then feel free to ask questions along the way. I'm going to kind of play moderator and read your questions, and I'll kind of interrupt Andrea along the way as she's telling us about her trip. So please feel free to say hi, and we'll say hi back.
Great.
So, Croatia. So this is the typical postcard picture we see. Tell us about your thoughts and your experience when you kind of saw that yourself in real life.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing and incredible. Croatia was so much more than I could have expected. It's just right across the Caspian Sea from Italy. And so, I don't know, I guess I just thought it would be more like Italy. I mean, they touch up at the very top. But well, I guess they do have some similarities, but really it's like night and day as a tourist. Italy, which I love Italy so much. I love it so much it's embarrassing, really. It's just so colorful and it just is so delicious, and I love everything about it. Venice is magic. I love that place. And so there's not a lot of places that compete with that. There are a few though, but I don't know, Croatia was at least a third the price. It was so cheap. I can't even believe it. Again, I went there on a trip that was round trip from Salt Lake, I think it was 340. It was less than 350. I think it was 340 round trip from Salt Lake City. And if you look at the total travel time, I like it to be no more than like 17 or 18 hours. And we had 2 layovers, but it still fit in that time limit. It was just perfect. We had like an hour and a half layover at a couple of spots. And so it still just took kind of 1 day-ish to get there. And anyway, so we got there and we flew into Zagreb, which is beautiful and amazing. And I was already in love with the country there. And it's just beautiful. It's the cleanest European city I've ever been to. European country, I'm going to say. It was just so perfect and clean. And there's a lot of graffiti in Europe. And Croatia had, again, the least I've seen anywhere. They did have a little, but other places like Prague, which I also adore, has so much graffiti. And so does Germany. But Croatia didn't have very much. And so that kind of, well, it changes the experience, I think, for better or for worse.
From so many levels, you probably feel safer.
Yeah, I hated the graffiti, especially, it pains me to see beautiful buildings kind of defaced like that. But when I travel, I always talk to the Uber drivers and the museum workers. I just talk to natives. I want to hear their perspective of things. And we talked to this tour guide at the castle in Prague, and he had wonderful insight about it. He was mid-20s probably. And I asked him, I said, your city is so beautiful. He said, why do you leave the graffiti, or why don't you do more about the graffiti? And he said to them, it is a real expression of art. And so they don't see it as destruction or defacing. They see it as art. And so that kind of helped me have a better perspective about it. But it kind of pains me. Like, to see those beautiful buildings hurt. So anyway, so Zagreb was amazing. There's this church up on the hill. There's kind of an upper town that's the old town. You have to take this cute little funicular up to get there. There's a museum there called the Museum of Broken Relationships, and it sounds weird, but it was so cool and so interesting. I swear I'd go just for that, just because it's just such a unique experience. They've had people from all over the world send them things that commemorate a broken relationship, and then talk about it. And so they had everything from, kind of standard, he cheated on me, and something that represented that. There were several that it's just like, oh my gosh, that's out of their control. Like there was a wedding dress from a woman in Istanbul she sent their wedding dress because her fiance was killed in the bomb that went off there a couple of years ago. And so it's tragic, it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking, really awesome museum. And then I really like to understand the history of an area. And so there's a great museum there, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's not far from the Museum of Broken Relationships. So if you go, just look it up on the map. And
is there a picture? Do we have a picture of it on your slideshow?
No.
Okay.
No. This picture right here, actually, that we're looking at is Bosnia and Herzegovina. We took a day trip there. So when we got down to Dubrovnik, we wanted to just see some other places. And I love Eastern Europe. I love it. I could spend so much time there. And anyway, so we just took a day trip and went over to this cute little town and just looked around, shopped around. They all tend to have what they call an old town area, which is, they're all just so fun and interesting. So anyway, that's a little example from Bosnia Herzegovina. But back to this museum about 1918. So I went in and we kind of walked through it and stuff, and I got a little bit about it, but I'm just like, I don't understand the significance of this year for them. And so I got talking to one of the museum workers, and oh my gosh, the insight that she gave us was just extraordinary. That was so fun. And anyway, there's tons of other really cool things to see in Zagreb. And then, do you want to know what we did next?
Yes.
Okay. We took an overnight train from Zagreb to Split. And we did that for a few reasons. This was also a fairly quick trip. It was just 8 days. And we figured, well, it's like a 6-hour train ride. And so we could have flown. But you figure you have to go to the airport early, and then you have to fly. And then anyway, it ends up being, I don't know, not that much. I don't think it would have saved us much time. So 6-hour train ride. So we took an overnight train. So we slept on the train. I did such a That's me getting ready to zonk out on the train. And so it saved us lodging for the night, and it saved us that 6 or 7 hour block of time that we would have had to spend traveling. And so
I love that as a travel hack. I've done that a couple times. And yeah, I mean, it's such a cheap upgrade to get a room with a bunk, and you just crash through the train ride.
Yeah. Is it okay if I talk about the hunky conductor?
I didn't see a picture of him.
No, I didn't take any pictures of him, but I told my friend, forget the fireman, I'll buy his calendar. He was so cute. Anyway, that was just kind of a little icing on the cake. So anyway, so we went to Split, and I didn't really know what to expect. I knew they had a palace in an old town and stuff. And they had a wonderful farmer's market. I could not believe that farmer's market. And it was so nicely organized. There was a fish market. This is a picture from the Split farmer's market. And I had to get a picture of oranges. I have other ones too, but this one was just kind of more bright and fun. The oranges were insane. They were there it was their time to be in season there. I don't know if they are everywhere, because I've never been around oranges like that, fresh oranges. Anyway, the oranges were insane. I've said this about a million things, but not a million, but a handful. I would go back to Croatia at this time of year just for the oranges. They were so good.
Really? I've never heard of, like, you a lot of times you'll see things that are really good get imported, but do they just not stay fresh long enough or something?
I don't know. I have no idea. I had no idea that oranges could taste like that. It's been so long since I've had a good one. That actually is something else that we should talk about. A lot of people think I'm kind of crazy for traveling this time of year. I'm telling you, it's the best. It is the best. We didn't wait in one line for anything. I went to Cinque Terre and a few places around northern Italy last fall, and you're like, elbows, trying to get through people and stuff. And there were so many people. It was like solid, massive people. We waited in line for an hour. We stood in line for an hour just to get some fast food on one of the Cinque Terre little towns, and I can't even imagine like trying to get a suitcase through that crowd. And Croatia was a dream. I'm sure it gets more crowded there in the summer. It's pretty popular, especially with the Game of Thrones crowd.
So do you typically do you prefer one or the other? Like, I assume you traveling in shoulder and off season is obviously going to save a lot of money. You don't have to go that way. It's easy to save in peak season too if you choose your destination or choose where the deals are versus choosing where you want to go. But do you have a certain philosophy that you prefer? Do you prefer shoulder and off season?
I do. That is my philosophy. Travel in the off season. I hate fighting crowds, and I don't wait in line. I'm not good at waiting in line, and so and that goes from the airport to anywhere. I don't want to wait in line, and it's just such a waste of time. And that's why I prefer to travel in the off season. It's cooler. It's always easier to get warm, I think, than it is to get cool.
Nice.
So this time, we looked at the temperature and stuff, and it wasn't as cold as here, but it was chilly, and so I just took a down coat and was totally fine. I've got a few questions. Maybe we can cover them with pictures you have. I've got 3 right now. Recommendations for bars and restaurants. 2 people who are going in April and May. And then another question about family travel and beach recommendations. Okay.
You'll either of those?
You'll have to. I do family travel, and I'll tell you how. Okay, so I'm going to tell you how I find everything. I go to, this is the family travel. Do you want to do this one first, Joel? I'm looking at the question you have on there. I'm not sure if they come in an order or not.
Yeah, let's cover this. Sorry, I thought that's what you were answering.
Oh, no. Okay, so family travel, I'll talk about that. And then beach destinations, we'll talk about that. So this is what I do for family travel. It's a lot of money to take all of my kids somewhere, right? We went to DC and Philadelphia last summer, and it's a lot of money. And honestly, it's a pain in the neck. let me just interject. We've got a lot of people who have joined since we started. Andrea is a single mother of 5.
So yes, travel is a predicament for you every time. So please continue.
So what I decided to do is transition my kids. Okay, so for Christmas, I decided to transition my kids to experiences instead of things. They're all teenagers and we just don't need stuff, you know? And I really want to teach them to be citizens of the world and to have this desire to travel and to prioritize it and stuff. And so I started, I'll make this as short as I can, but we've always kind of had a big pile of stuff under the tree. When I first got divorced, I just had zero money. I'd wrap everything separately. So each pair of socks I'd wrap separately, you know, everything. So we'd have a nice big pile. And so anyway, I don't know, I couldn't bear with just not having a big pile. And so what I did is I got the things that I would usually give them. Plus I threw in some ramen packages and stuff. And I did a word scramble. And so last year, I took my twins to Budapest and Zurich. And so I typed out those letters and taped them to these packages and then they unwrapped it and then they had to unscramble them. And it was so fun. And so anyway, so what I did is I found really cheap trips and took my kids one-on-one, or in my twins' case, I took both of them at the same time, and took them to a fun foreign place, or as foreign as they could manage. I had a daughter that was really just too busy with school last year. So we went to Chicago to see Hamilton. And again, I just find cheap tickets. So I let kind of the sales dictate where and when I go, rather than me saying, okay, the second week of July, I'm going to go to Italy. Because the chances of getting a good deal like that are slim to none. But if I say, okay, sometime this summer, I want to get to Poland, and then I just kind of watch flights and stuff. And then I also know that if I can just get to the continent, it's easy to get anywhere you want to go. Their train systems are so wonderful. And so probably what I'll end up doing is flying to Amsterdam and taking a train or maybe like an easy jet or something to Poland, because they're like $50 round trip usually for the flights, and then trains are even cheaper. There's also a fun little service in Europe that I should mention called BlaBlaCar. Have you heard of that, Joel?
I haven't.
It was so fun. We need it here. It's a carpooling app, but it's like legit carpooling. So like if I know I'm going to go visit my sister that lives 2.5 hours away next week, I'd put that on BlaBlaCar, and somebody will potentially ask to ride with me, and then they just pay me some money for gas, basically. And wow. Yeah, so last year, some friends and I went from a little town called Metz, France, up to Brussels, and we took a BlaBlaCar. And yeah, it was great experience.
So with that, you don't think I want to go to Croatia or I want to go to Rome or wherever. You kind of think I'd like to go there, but let's find a cheap trip that will get me to the continent and check 2 or 3 countries off your list.
Yeah, I try not to think like that, like checking countries off my list. Although I will admit Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Montenegro were kind of like that. Because I don't know when I'll get back to that area, you know? And I'm like, we're right here. It's half an hour away. We need to go. So I try not to think like that, but I just kind of focus on where I want to go. But sometimes like, I don't know, I have this whole algorithm going on in my head about travel. And like right now, I really want to go to Portugal and Poland. And so I watch more closely for those. But then if an opportunity comes up, like in my schedule, or I see a trip to southern Spain or whatever, you know, then I'll be like, okay, that's the one. That's what's going to get me to Portugal.
So tell me about, now you're a little unique. You've been a subscriber since the beginning, but you're in Salt Lake. We don't have a territory in Salt Lake. So you're subscribed to both LA and Denver. Do you just watch emails every day and then just with stuff like that in mind? Or do you customize the search so you're just focusing on Europe? Or how do you go about that?
Yes, plus more. I mean, honestly, there's so much of the world I haven't seen. I've seen a lot, but there's still a lot to see. And like I said, it's part of my plan for happiness. And so if tomorrow, if I saw a flight to Argentina for a couple $100, I'd probably do it. Why not? You know, I've never been. I'd love to see it. So what I learned, I think this is probably from you, actually. I know you were part of this conversation anyway, but if I look for for flights from Salt Lake, it can often cost $1,000 more. Whereas if I get a flight from Denver to wherever I want to go, I can get flights on Frontier to Denver, sometimes for even $50 round trip. Usually less than 100 though, round trip. And so if I find a flight for around 300 from Denver, and I'm so jealous of you guys because you have them all the time, then I can just tack on another 100 and still get where I want to go for, for less than $500.
Nice.
So, and then the same with LA, especially going to Asia. LA tends to be better for that.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I'll just go wherever.
Yeah, and that can make a difference too. Like most of the Asia trips I publish are mid to high 300s, sometimes getting into the low 400s, but we can find them under 300 on a regular basis out of LA.
Okay, so let's go back to Monica's question. So you'd like to hear my thoughts on family travel. So for me personally, I take them one at a time, and I'll tell you, it is the best experience. If you can swing that, I highly recommend it. Like if you looked at that picture, the kid on the far right, he's 20, and when we were walking around Italy, he would hold my hand. Oh, it was so awesome. I love that so much. And just the one-on-one time there's nothing like it, nothing. So I really recommend that if you can do it. If not, just everything that we do for helping people get cheap flights will help you. And family travel, you tend to see, I think, in more hotels and stuff. I'm really a big fan of Airbnb, and family travel and Airbnb go really well together. And that's probably another way to keep your costs down. I could talk more about Airbnb if you want to. And then Monica's asking about beach destinations in Croatia. So the answer to that is yes. The whole country practically is beach. Everybody goes to Dubrovnik, and it's absolutely fabulously wonderful. I mean, it's like a fairy tale. It's just unbelievable. And when you get to the Old Town area, they don't allow carts there either, for the most part. And so it's just so fun and easy and beautiful to get around there. And anyway, but I don't know, I have a hard time going to places where it's going to be so crowded and stuff. And so if I were going to go to a beach, which means I'd want to go there in the warm months, I think I would probably pick somewhere between Split and Dubrovnik and just go to any of those coastal towns. They're all, every beach there is beautiful. And the people that live there just love it. They absolutely love it there, the natives, the locals. And that's kind of what they said too, is go to the places in the middle that maybe aren't Split and aren't Dubrovnik. Okay, so there's that. What were those other?
Wait, let's segue real quick on that. Beaches, you've been to 30 countries, most of which are Europe, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Any other recommendations for beautiful beaches in Europe in general?
I prefer buildings and art and architecture to beaches.
Okay.
But let me just think for a second. Have I even been to a beach in Europe? I'm sure I have. In Italy, I went to Lido Island. That was kind of fun. That'd be a fun way to spend kind of a lazy afternoon. That's off of Venice. I don't think I've been to many beaches in Europe. I'm no help there. Sorry.
Honestly, it's not what I think of first when I've done Europe travels either. So.
Boy, I'll tell you,
Croatia beaches.
Oh man, I'm telling you, that whole country. If you look at it on a map, I mean, it's really one big beach, and the water. Oh my gosh, it's insane. It's so clear, and anyway, people love it. Yeah, I mean, look at that. It's crazy how clear the water there is. I couldn't even believe it.
I don't associate that with much of Europe. That's why we like to go to the Caribbean. But yeah.
If I were a beach person, Croatia would probably be number one on my list, honestly. Because you get the fun of Europe, plus you can get the beach. Right? Okay, what were those other two questions?
Let's see. Oh no, I lost them.
Do you remember them? What were they?
I'll go find them. Anyway, we'll get back to your pictures. Why don't we just kind of scroll okay. Past? You showed us that one.
Okay.
This comes talk about you saw a lot of architecture and history and so on. Why don't we just kind of talk about that?
Okay. Actually, I'd like to give you another little of my personal travel tips that has to do with this picture. When I first get somewhere, I don't do jet lag. First of all, don't do jet lag. But when I get there, I might be kind of tired and stuff. And I like to get oriented with a hop on, hop off bus. And so usually the first thing I do when I get there is drop off bags and then find a ho-ho, as they're called, the hop on, hop offs. And I'll take a ho-ho around, and that just kind of helps me get the lay of the land, and just shows me like the big things. Like in Paris, I didn't necessarily want to go to the Arc de Triomphe, but I wanted to see it. And so I took the ho-ho and just go right past and take pictures. So this picture is this incredible cemetery. And I decided not to do a tour there. I don't know why, but we did other things. But this is a cemetery, and it's just incredible, the exterior of this place. And this is a picture I shot from the ho-ho. And anyway, so that's what I have to say about that. I love to do, I've told you I really like Airbnb. I really like to do their experiences too. I don't know if you've seen those or not. Have you seen Airbnb experiences?
No, I haven't.
They're so fun. If you go to their site, you can look at homes or experiences. You just click on the experiences button, and then you put in a city, and it'll show you experiences. And when you book a place, it'll suggest experiences too. And so we've done, oh my gosh, so many fun things. Do you remember, I did a walking tour of the bridges of San Diego when I was there. That was so fun. That was really fun to take pictures too. And then in Budapest, we made leather wallets, my kids and I, the twins, when we did that trip. I've done several just historical tours. I've done several tours of like Jewish quarters and old towns. My daughter and I are going to do one making kombucha when we go to Ireland this weekend. I've done some ghost tours that are really fun. I don't like to be scared, and but they're not usually scary. They're really usually super interesting legends and history. So anyway, really recommend those too. I saw this picture. I just like this because he looks so fierce, and I love horses too. And this is a leader who was important to Zagreb. And this was on one of my little walking tours. I walked us past this and talked about it. Okay, what else you got?
I'm just going to scroll through these pictures you sent me.
Okay, this is an observation, a picture from an observation deck. And this is the old town, and that's the famous cathedral there in the background. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but I don't know if they do it here either. I have no idea. But it seems like they're always working on renovating the old things in Europe. They kind of have to. They're thousands of years old in some cases. And they've started putting on the outside, they put what it actually looks like behind it. And so that kind of helps not totally destroy the experience, but they were working on that one tower, the one steeple of that church there. Anyway, that's just a big, beautiful kind of central square there in Zagreb.
And so how much time did you spend between Zagreb and Split? Sounds like you split your time between the two.
Yeah. So we kind of did a loop. So we went from, so we flew in and out of Zagreb. And so we went from Zagreb to Split, and then took it's like a 3-hour bus down to Dubrovnik. And then we did those couple little, we actually just hired a car and went to those couple of places, and it costs less than renting a car. Anyway, and then how did we get back? Oh, we actually flew back up to Zagreb.
So if someone had just a short trip, 4 or 5 days, and they had those 3 areas to choose from, you only got 5 days, that's going to be tough to cover. How would you rank them? Which should they see first, and which should they see last? I know I'm asking you to split the baby.
Oh, it's so hard. I think I gave Split 51%, and my friend gave Dubrovnik 51%. So and that was between Dubrovnik and Split. So Zagreb's probably number 3 on the list. It's ultra cool, but it's just, I haven't talked too much about Split. I love that place. There's a big palace that was built by a Roman dude named Diocletian. And I think it was built in 305. So there's this huge palace, and it's all walkable. There's no cars and stuff in there either. It's like a small version of Venice, really, with the narrow hallways and tall buildings and houses built over the roadways. And and then there's also, I think I sent you a picture of this old, look in that real quick and let's see. That
You
is,
look at them all.
it is, scroll down. Okay, it's the one next to me sleeping.
This one?
To the right of me sleeping. Yep, that's the one. Okay, so this is inside that palace, this old Roman palace. I called it his Diocletian's home away from Rome. I think I'm funny. Just kidding, I don't.
Hey, wait, hold on. Let me just introduce you. This is my wife.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm just raving about Croatia and how much I love it.
That's what I heard.
This is top of her list.
It's on my list, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
So it's amazing. It's as beautiful as Italy in every way. Such interesting history, at least as interesting history as Italy, and it costs a third as much. Way fewer people. It was amazing.
He likes that part.
Yeah, I'm not big on super big crowds. I like to travel in the off season, but that doesn't work because you guys are, at least Joel is a beach person. How about you? Are you a beach person too?
Yes and no, but I'm ready. We've done a lot of beach, so I'm ready for, I like the beach, but I'm not ready for the combination of beach with all the extra stuff that Croatia has to offer.
Yeah, so
ours is different than yours because we have kind of a shorter leash. I made her come say hi, so hi.
Hi. Hi.
Ours is different because we have a shorter leash. We've got younger kids, and only 5-day windows when they're off with their mom. So it takes like a major negotiation to get a long period of time to either go with the kids or go without. So we love the Caribbean, and we can't wait for longer windows of time when we can go do Europe and stuff. But for us right now, we just go hit the beach whenever we can because that's almost always a quick direct flight, and that's what we do. But that's the cool thing too, is you can just choose whatever's best for you. Your kids are older now, and I love your one-on-one thing. I just did that for the first time with my daughter last weekend. We went to Cabo, and because we both are, the two of us are probably the biggest divers. We love scuba diving. And so it was a daddy-daughter dive trip, and it was so good.
Did she let you hold her hand?
What's that?
Did she let you hold her hand?
Nope. Nope. She's too cool for that.
Yeah, she'll come back to you. Wait till she's 20.
Yeah. Lots of good talks.
Okay. Croatia is actually probably a really good fit for people like you. Because you're so close to the beach, you can do the beach stuff, and there's such interesting history right there at the beach. So it's actually probably a really good fit for you guys. So keep that in mind. And if you saw a flight there for less than $350 for 5 days, would you do that? Is that still just not quite enough time? So you have to figure 2 days of travel, so you'd have 3 days there.
I typically, when I publish deals, I try to not publish anything shorter than 5 days to Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, fewer than 5 days. I wouldn't even consider it. And 5 days has got to be like Dublin, somewhere I can just get in and out real quick,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, we try for 5 days to 2 weeks to Europe. Asia, Africa, Australia, those are minimum 1 week, and even that is short. But hey, I know someone that we accidentally posted a 4-day trip to Paris, and it wasn't an accident. It was a debate between my sister and I, and she said, we have to publish this. It was like $240 to Paris, and one of our subscribers went. I wouldn't go for that. I don't care. I wouldn't do it for $100, but
really, oh my gosh, I wouldn't a heartbeat
for a 4-day trip.
Yes, yes, because I can work on the plane, and I appreciate the alone time because I don't get much of that. And so I used to dread flying, and now it's just. Once I'm on the plane, I like it just as much as the rest of the trip, just, for the alone time and just white noise, I like that. So I would go in a heartbeat for $240 for 4 days. Yeah, $300 for 4 days, probably not, but $240 is not past my cutoff.
I like the way you think.
Yeah, okay, so this palace, I want to tell you just a little bit more about this, okay? So it's huge. It's like Venice, maybe a smaller version of it. There's these beautiful old ruins. It's so beautifully well kept up, which sounds funny because we're looking at ruins. Oh, sorry, somebody's at my door. probably Amazon. Sorry about that. Anyway, can you hear me?
Yep.
Guys, hey, guys, you got to be quiet. Okay.
Mother of 5.
I know, I just tuned it out. Anyway, so we stayed at an Airbnb apartment that was within the palace walls. And we didn't even realize it. Because you walk through this big fence. I mean, it's got a gate all the way around it. And you walk through that. But it just feels like you're in a town like Venice or something. And so we kept saying, where's the palace? Where's the palace? And finally we found somebody that spoke English. And they're like, you're in the palace. This is the palace. And so our Airbnb apartment was right in the palace. It was so cool. I loved that place. It was so beautiful. And we did an Airbnb walking tour and just had the most amazing guide. And she told us just all kinds of things. She showed us fun things like the most narrow street. And she talked to us about who's building the houses over the road and why, and talked about the different sections of fence. And oh my gosh, it was so interesting. So anyway, Split kind of won out just by a little tiny bit over Dubrovnik for me. But
I would be going crazy with this architecture. This would be a source of one of my wife's and my arguments, because I would pull up my camera and just I'd be taking 1,000 photos of just all of this architecture.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do too. I do. I mean, I'll count for you in a second because you're gonna laugh, but I always do that too. Why not take 1 million photos? We can, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, I know. One of those questions was about restaurant and bar recommendations. So I'll have to think for a second and see what sticks out in my mind. Every meal we had was so good. It's different than Italy. Okay, I know one place for sure. It's called the English means grandfather's. I'll have to look up on a map. Let me just think for a second about that, and I'll tell you the exact name of it. But it's in Old Town Zagreb, and it's right by the church with the cool roof. Joel, did you see? I can't remember which saint that is. Maybe Nicholas. No, I don't know. Anyway,
go back to your collage.
Yeah. So it's the picture with the cool roof. I'm spacing that guy's name too. Go up just a bit. Up right there in the middle. Cool roof. Yep, that one. Okay, it's just right around the corner from there. And our Airbnb owner recommended this place. And oh my gosh, I had some of the best food I've ever had. It was so good. The things they put together there are just so interesting. Like they have these things, and they're like little scones, and they put goat cheese and some other kind of cheese. And you just slice them open and scoop this cheese in and eat it while it's warm. Oh my gosh, it was ridiculously good. So good. And then the schnitzel there is delicious. Anyway, this place is good enough that I feel like I need to tell you that. But what I usually do to find the best things is I go to Pinterest, and I'll just start pinning things. Like if you follow me on Pinterest, you'll see I've got a board called Craving Croatia because I'd been wanting to go there for a couple of years. And I'll just
what's your Pinterest name?
I don't know. Let me see.
For anybody who wants to follow you. And while you're looking that up, I should interview my own wife sometimes. Whenever we travel, so I get the logistics. I find the cheap trips, the cheap dates to go, and then we brainstorm collaboratively. We collaborate on where we're going to stay, but then she's completely in charge of dining, and she researches it. When she goes on her girls' trips, she researches, and she uses mostly Yelp, but I think she does do Pinterest too. But she nails it every time.
Oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to have that help, because it is a bit of work. And that being said, I have no problem just showing up somewhere without having done any research. Because I like to talk to the locals. And so that can be part of the conversation. So my Pinterest is pinterest.com/A Warner. Yeah, and so what I'll do is I'll just go there and I'll say like top 5 Zagreb and just see what comes up. And sometimes it's restaurants, sometimes it's lodging, sometimes it's beaches. I'll just look for recommendations that other people have already put together because somebody's already done it. Somebody's already been there.
Right.
I'll also look up on Pinterest. I'll do like top 5 Instagram to just kind of see if there's any cool, fun places to take pictures. different views and stuff like that. I like to find my own too, but it's really fun to just look at those and see what I want to see.
Nice. Well, I'm having trouble having that show up on the screen. I don't know, user error. Anybody who's listening, please go ahead and just type in pinterest.com/A Warner, WARNER. That way, anybody who wants to follow Andrea's stuff from her travels or her recommended places, you can just find her stuff on Pinterest.
Yeah, I'm not super active on Pinterest. So you'll have a very good idea when I'm planning to go somewhere, because I'll start pinning a bunch of stuff to that place.
And are you more active on Instagram?
Definitely more on Instagram.
Is it the same username?
No, it's Andrea Warner.
Andrea Warner. Okay. So same thing. If Instagram, if you could type in Andrea Warner, that'd be great. Cool. Tell us more.
Okay, so let's see. We got down to so Split. I absolutely love Dubrovnik. We went down there. It was absolutely incredible. Wear good walking shoes. I love. I swear it's my favorite thing to look at my phone at the end of the day and see that I've walked 10 to 12 miles that day.
Wow.
That's how I know I've had a good day. And I try to do that most every day that I travel. I just think it's so fun, and you just see so much more on the ground, you know. And I think my trips that I've maybe liked the least are the ones where I walked the least, like China, for example. We did a tour there. Where they
walked the least in China?
Yeah, we took buses. We did a tour bus. And I know tours, some people absolutely love tours like that, you know, the whole guided tour, they take you everywhere. And it's really not my bag, but my friend found a really amazing price, and we'd wanted to go there, so we went. And I don't know, I'm happier when I'm just walking around and looking at stuff, and I enjoy that a lot more.
I'm kind of the same way, and it's not like, man, I took a tour one time well, it wasn't a tour, it was an excursion, and we were in where I was in Nicaragua, and we had to get to Nicaragua Lake, the lake of 365 islands, and there were so many, like I was just jonesing to stop the bus and get off and just take photos. Like, so much history. And yeah, tours, I'm with you.
And I think I don't know, lots of people like to go and travel and just go see as many places as they can. I went with some friends last spring, and it was their first time to Europe, and they were so excited to go and stuff. And we flew into Amsterdam, and then went to Cologne, Germany, and then went to Luxembourg, and then to France, and then to Brussels and Bruges, which is another of my favorites, by the way, up to The Hague, and then back to Amsterdam. So we kind of made this circle, and it was so fun. We had a wonderful time. At the same time, it's a little bit exhausting. And I don't know, just after my time doing the study abroad in Mexico, and then I lived in Japan for a year, I just really like to stay in one place and just kind of live like the locals. Shop where they shop, eat where they eat, cook what they cook. And anyway, so there aren't really that many people that like to travel that way. So I don't usually get to do that, except for when I take my kids. Then we do. Then I get all the say. Anyway, I'm just looking for the name of that restaurant in Zagreb. It was so good. So good.
We could post it in the comments when you find it.
Yeah, I'm looking through my 1,000 photos. Do we have more comments?
I'd lost it on my feed. I do see others. I'm just gonna have to read them to you. Well, I think we just answered that. Michelle asks, sounds like you do a lot of tours. When you get there, how do you find reasonable prices on the tours? You don't do that, your friend does, but any recommendations on that?
Well, actually, okay, so the tour, so when I say, what else will we call those? Excursions, maybe, where you get on, like when we went to China, we got on a bus and we took a bus here and took a bus here and took a bus here. The whole thing was guided and organized. We only had like a half a day of free time the whole time. So what I do are just the little walking tours and stuff that take a couple of hours, like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And the first thing I do is Google a free walking tour Bruges, for example, which I highly, oh my gosh, I love Bruges so much. Maybe not quite as much as Croatia, but darn close. But anyway, just I had such a great experience in Bruges. I've been doing that everywhere I go. I'll Google free walking tour and then the name of the city. And those are amazing. And of course they're working for tips, but then of course they're amazing tour guides, right? They wouldn't do it if they couldn't feel confident that they would get tips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, I'm sure that they get kickbacks too, like they'll take you to a brewery or whatever, and you'll get a coupon. And more power to them. I learned such great history, you know. Thank you. I'll be glad to give you a tip. I'll be glad to, you know, whatever they need me to do. So that's the first thing I do.
Google free walking tour.
Yeah.
That sounds like something you could do in any major.
Yeah. Even some minor. Yeah, even some minor. And yeah, it's been amazing. When we were in Budapest, I think I did 3 or 4. I think they're so fun. Like my mom loves gardening, and so sometimes I'll do like free walking tour garden, and wherever I happen to be with her. So that's the first thing I do. The second thing I do is look on Airbnb experiences, because they're often so much more reasonable than other places. And yeah, and then I'll just look on Pinterest. That's another place I go. And like I said, I always try to do the ho-hos. They usually don't cost very much. And then you get that kind of overview, and then you know where you want to spend more time. And you know, in a place like London, it might even be worth it to do like 2 days of ho-hos, and just kind of go around and see everything. That's kind of what I did the second or third time I went, because there was just so much to see. And so I did a couple of days of ho-ho, and then knew that I wanted to spend more time in the National Gallery. And so I got off and spent half a day there, and could have spent 3 days there. I loved it so much.
So I have a similar strategy, but I feel like you could do better with it. Like when I go and when I'm solo, because it's usually a different negotiation with when I'm with my wife or when I'm with our whole family. But like when I'm solo, I love to, like, the first thing I do is I hire a car. Uh-oh, we lost Andrea. Hopefully she'll come back and join us. Here she is.
Oh.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened.
Okay. The first thing I do typically is I'll ask around, I'll hire a car, and you can almost always find just an all-day driver who will just take you and show you stuff.
Oh, fun.
Like, I just say, forget the tourist stuff, forget the petting the leopards and the parrots and the, you know, like the cruise stops. Like, let's see the real nooks and crannies of the area. But it sounds like you would have, like, you've got that built in with Ho-Ho, which is all of Europe? Or how does that work?
Yeah, maybe not the smaller cities, and of course you can do it in places like Venice, but yeah, I mean they almost all have it. You know, the big red buses, and a lot of times that can, especially if they have live guides, that can end up being one of the highlights of the tour. Like my kids, that was their favorite thing in Philadelphia, was the Ho-Ho. The guy was so funny and so interesting. We loved him.
I'll have to check that out next time.
Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing some of these comments. Let's see. This is all regarding Croatia. There's sailors and plan to live on a sailboat for 2 years in the Mediterranean. We're hearing that marina prices have doubled in the last 2 years, and that the seaport towns and villages are now more commercialized. Thoughts? I have not been to the Mediterranean, and I do not go to the sea very much. And more commercialized. Boy, I don't know. How could they be more commercialized? I mean, they're already so commercialized. I don't know. The thing I do know about that is go to the smaller places. Everybody talks about Zagreb, Split, and Croatia. Go to the ones in between. Right? That's just, I can't tell you. I think I told you this, Joel, but I rate things based on I call it a delight-o-meter. And honestly, I just say how delighted I am with the place. And that little town I told you about, Metz, France, oh my gosh, it was a 10 on my delight-o-meter, and I'd never even heard of it before that trip. It's just this little town, and there is so much cool history and architecture, and it's just so picturesque. You can't even believe it. And like I don't know anybody that had ever heard of it. And it is the cutest little town, and I'll bet anything that there's some places on Croatia, for example, that are like that. So just don't go to the crazy places.
And that's the thing I like about just hiring a local driver or just doing something like that that's kind of off the common popular excursion list that you're going to find on Expedia or Travelocity, but just get there, get on the ground, ask around, find a driver and say, take me to the local stuff. I've seen so many cool things at various places, and I'm not all that world traveled. Like I mentioned, I've got a short leash just because of time constraints with jobs and school and lacrosse and snowboarding and band and all that stuff. And I don't know, just going and seeing the less popular stuff is so
it's just as cool. Yeah, right? It's just as cool. It may not be the Eiffel Tower or the Arc de Triomphe, but there's so many other beautiful and just amazing places. And it's fun to go somewhere that not everybody in the world has been.
Yeah.
You know, at this point in time, I don't know anybody who's been to Croatia, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like that. But everybody I know practically has been to Paris, right? Here's an interesting comment. Katie said, independent travel is great if you're a confident traveler. However, when we went to Turkey for 3 weeks, I would have to have a guide. I agree with that. And honestly, that's kind of how I felt about China too. I don't know, we weren't super confident about going there without a guide. And I will say that I went to Istanbul by myself 3 years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And it was the most incredible experience, I swear, of my life. But that was about 10 months before the first kind of big bombing incident that they had. Joel, do you use the State Department app?
No, I don't.
Okay, so the State Department has an app. I'm just looking at this right now. I was just talking to somebody last night about this. We're going to Moscow in the fall. And my friend was like, aren't you scared to go there? And people say it's becoming less safe. And I'm like, well, the world is becoming less safe. And I kind of rely on this, but at the same time, you don't want to be stupid, right? And so I use the State Department app, to tell them where I am in a foreign country, because if something happens, you know, I want them to know. Some people don't like that and don't want them to know, but I do. You know, I want them to know so they can come help me if I need it or whatever. But they rank countries based on, I think it's just based on how safe they are. So for example, the Czech Republic is a level 1, which is exercise normal precaution. Croatia is a 2, I think. No, Croatia is also a level 1, exercise normal precaution. What do you think France is right now on a scale of 1 to 4?
I'm going to say a 2.
France is a 2.
France or Paris?
France. They do it by country. Level 2, exercise increased caution. The United Kingdom is a level 2. Most of Western Europe is a level 2. And so what
if you're traveling solo, don't go to a 3 or 4.
Exactly. But really, I mean, even if I'm not going single, I'd have a hard time going to a 3. Like, what's a 3? Syria is a 4, which is do not go. So, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of brain, right? Just, it's not a great time to be going to Syria. 4 is specifically do not travel. That's what it says. They do not want you going there. Moscow is, Russia is a 2. So what this is saying, it's Turkey that's a 3. Let's look at that and I'll tell you exactly what that scale says. And I certainly don't think they know everything, but I think they do keep this up to date. So level 3 is reconsider travel. And so for me personally in my life right now, I don't think I would go to a level 3. Even with the tour. I mean, I've got kids that still rely on me and stuff. I don't think I would do it.
Right. That's a great recommendation. I pinned it into the comments.
Oh, okay. Cool. So that's how I decide. And then when people say, well, aren't you scared to go to Russia? I'm like, well, no. But I say, would you be afraid to go to London right now? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, the State Department has it classified at the same level. And so, yeah. And so Croatia is a 1. That's pretty sweet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've been to 30 plus countries?
Yeah.
Top 3?
Oh no, really? You're going to make me do that?
Top 5?
Okay, let's do top 5. That's easy.
Let 2 or 3 beat it.
What 2 or 3 beat which? Oh,
Croatia.
Well, I don't know. I'm just still kind of formulating this in my mind, so I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
The top three are Istanbul, Prague, and Venice. Those are my top three. My first top three. Yeah, I'm going to say that. 4 and 5 are going to be Split and Bruges.
Split in where?
Bruges, Belgium.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my top 5 right this minute. The top 3 has been pretty steady for a long time. So.
And you're just going to keep trying to knock them off the list.
I just want to keep seeing Europe. Poland and Portugal, baby. That's where I'm headed next.
Nice.
Actually, that's not true.
Ireland is next.
Well, Ireland, and then Greece, and then Moscow.
Wow. Impressive.
Good year, huh?
Well, let's see. Let's finish up your photos.
Oh, there's a couple more questions. Can you see those?
Let's see. Kate, Katie, Sandy, Scott. We'll get to you guys. Thanks for chiming in. Katie's is more of a comment.
Oh, Jenny asks if I drive or use public transport. I detest driving, but I hate driving, period. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask this, but I don't know. Driving in Europe just doesn't seem that fun. Plus, I feel like it's more of like a local experience to take trains and things like that. And it's so easy to fly around continental Europe. I mean, I wish more people knew that. It is so easy. My son and I took him to Berlin. This is something else I'll often do. I like to kind of plan the first half and then the last night before I leave, and leave the second half kind of open in case, so we did that in Croatia. And we're like, because we're like, what if we just want to go over to Vienna? Or Vienna or Venice. What if we want to go to Venice? Let's just kind of keep it open a little bit. But we left Croatia too much to leave. I
just got a +1 from my wife over here in the heckling section.
Yeah, but my son and I, we got a plane from Berlin to Venice for $20. An EasyJet. Yeah, it's so easy to get around Europe. So I don't know. I don't think I would drive. And plus, I'll tell you something else. Parking is expensive. In any of the major cities, parking is expensive. And we'll probably.
I've done that once. We rented a car, and it was a great experience. We had one scare, but no need. Just no need. Just find a cab, find an Uber. Uber is almost everywhere anyway.
Mm-hmm. They are, even in Croatia. And there's some countries that have kind of worked out partnerships somehow with the taxi companies. And it's so nice. It's so wonderful because they still have to kind of keep the Uber standards, which is, a decent car that doesn't smell terrible. And you can track where you're going on the map to make sure that they're not, ripping you off. And you pay through the app too. So Croatia has that. I love Uber. And it definitely costs less than the taxis because I could compare side by side. So Uber is definitely the way to go in Croatia, unless for some reason you absolutely love driving. But I don't know. I wouldn't do it. Okay, what else we got?
Let's see. Why don't you look at the comments because mine seem to be frozen. I can't seem to do comments and your slideshow at the same time. So. You saw that? You talked about that. Oh, pretty. So it's very hilly. You get to be up and above and see everything.
Yeah, this picture. Yeah, this picture here is. I'm just realizing the picture with the steps up. That's actually Montenegro. This picture is Bosnia and Herzegovina. I mixed up my days. Yeah. So here we're up on top of this hill. There's a chapel that is so beautiful, but it was only built 16 years ago, so I didn't include it in the slideshow, but it's beautiful. And you look down and you can see this panoramic view of the whole valley. And I just thought that shot right there is so beautiful with the red roofs close together and that beautiful bridge, a little bit of sky. But yeah, it does get hilly. I think it's hilly right up to the beaches, honestly. Let's see, family, travel, and beach. We talked about that. Restaurant, bar recommendations. We talked about that. Oh, you're going in April. I'm so jealous. It's going to be so beautiful.
I love this photo you took.
I know. Isn't that fun? I saw that at first I was like, why is she feeding them? But then I was like, this is actually really beautiful. This little old woman, and I don't know. And she was there for a long time. She was there for like 15 minutes feeding them. And I was like, that is so beautiful. And it's just right there inside the fortress in Dubrovnik.
You've got a really great eye.
Thank you.
This looks like it would be something that would be a painting. Someone would get inspired from this photo and do a painting.
There was actually an episode, is that what we call it? Star Wars was filmed right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there were stormtroopers right there. Isn't that funny?
Did you get that on your free walking tour?
I did, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I had no idea. I, of course, heard about Game of Thrones. I haven't seen it, but I'd heard about that. But yeah, I didn't know Star Wars was filmed there too. Oh, that was
beautiful.
So pretty. Isn't that gorgeous?
Was it open? Did you get to go in there too?
Okay, so this is another advantage about those the walking tours. All the ones I've done have been done by locals. I'm sure that's not true across the board, but I've lucked out, I think. And it looks closed. It was kind of a quiet time of night. I wouldn't have even thought to try the doors, but we were with this local walking tour person, and she's like, let's see if we can go in. And she went up and opened the door and opened the second door, and we were there in. And we did that at 2 or 3 churches that looked like they were closed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did. We got to go in and peek in there. It was lovely. I think it's either this one or one right in back of it. I think it's one in back of it. There's 24 churches, I think, or 42. Maybe I have those numbers flipped. 24 churches right in this little area. It was just fascinating.
Wow.
The church in back of it still has some bullet holes.
Has bullet holes?
Mm-hmm. From their recent war, which I also learned a really lot about and thought it was so interesting.
From a free walking tour, not from a $50 excursion that you booked on Expedia.
Correct. I've never booked a tour. Yeah.
More Croatia oranges.
Oh, they were amazing. Those are the ones that were out in front of my Airbnb that we could just pick. Yeah, they were so amazing.
Oh, that's the last one.
Okay. Scott asked if I stayed in an EU country more than 90 days and run into a visa problem. I have not. You've
not stayed more than 90 days. You haven't?
No.
Okay.
Kids. Yeah, kids. No, I couldn't be gone that long. Let's see. Great experience. Had a friend that went and could not hire a car, get a taxi because she was in shorts, tank top, and flip-flops. Oh, that's Turkey. Yeah, I'm sure they're really modest there. You want to be respectful of the cultures. And in places like that, definitely read up beforehand and see what the local cultural norms are. Istanbul wasn't as bad as you'd think. In order to go into the mosques and stuff, you have to wear a head wrap and you have to be covered. I mean, you can't have short sleeves, I think, and you can't be wearing shorts, but I think I was just wearing a skirt and I was fine. Okay, good train system. You know what's interesting? Okay, Jenny says, I didn't realize that Croatia had a good train system. I thought I had read that they didn't have very many train options in Croatia. It's funny, I talked to a doctor who's from Split. There's somebody at the door again. Hey guys, come on. Sorry, real life, me, dogs, kids. Anyway, this doctor was from Split, right? And I told him that we're going to take the trains around. He's like, oh, no, rent a car. Don't take the trains. The trains are horrible, blah, blah, blah. The trains were amazing. We had zero problem. Have you heard of Seat 61, Joel?
Nope.
Okay, that's a fantastic site. It's so good. I'll go there, and he has, I don't know what you call it, like some kind of an engine thing where you go there and you put where you're traveling from and where you want to go to. And he lays out the best ways to do it. So it's from his site, seat61.com. That's how I figured out. I was hoping there'd be a sleeper train, and he told me that there was and how to get there.
Hey, let's just if my viewers could just type in seat61.com for any future people who can just click on a link. That'd be great.
Okay.
So sorry, seat 61.
Yeah. So anyway, so
he just lays it out.
Yeah, he does. And so the point that you make though is it would be hard to get, like we couldn't get from Split to Dubrovnik on a train. We had to take a bus, but that was easy too. I mean, they really have transportation kind of dialed in Europe, I think. You can get anywhere you need to pretty easily, pretty frequently, even in the off season. I'm sure it's even easier. Like I think they said the bus runs every 20 minutes or half an hour or something in the summer from Split to Zagreb. So if you hate driving like I do, or you
so you really you just mastered your way around getting around town, but you did it mostly on the fly. You got there, you landed, you had a few resources on how to get around, but you didn't necessarily need to do a ton of pre-planning.
No,
is that how you do most of your trips?
I don't have time. Yeah. So I'll, like I said, I'll go to Pinterest and pin some things and just try to scan through things, and I'll look for names that I see over and over, and I'll be like, okay, those are the big spots, and those are the ones that you can usually see on the ho-ho, and then I'll look for free walking tours and just things that have to do with art and architecture. And gardens. Those are kind of my focuses, and just do those. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I feel like I've missed out on something because I haven't planned every minute, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I've been able to see everything I wanted to. That's
probably my wife's and my biggest disagreement. I like to just get there and wing it, and she wants to pre-plan most of it.
Well, do half and half like I do then.
Do what?
Do half and half. You plan the first half and just go wild the second half.
Yeah.
See what happens.
And I don't totally wing it. Like my trip last weekend with my daughter Julia, we had our first day planned, and thank goodness, because we had a mishap and we ended up getting in a lot later, and we couldn't have planned the next day. So
yeah. But I mentioned this earlier, but I always make sure that I have the last night planned too, and I always want it to be within a taxi ride of the airport. And so I'm not going to stay somewhere 3 hours away from the airport the night before I leave.
I haven't heard that. That's a real, makes total sense.
Yeah, it just causes me less stress, honestly. You know, and usually there's places like there's a town. Oh my gosh, this is probably my second favorite city in Italy. It's called, it's just a little northwest of Venice. I'll have to look at a map. It is so cool. And I would have never stayed there except that I was flying out of Venice and wanted to see somewhere else. And so we stayed in this little town. It was absolutely, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. Everything from Roman walls to, I think it's 13th century art on the ceiling. Oh my gosh, it was so pretty. And the market, oh my gosh, it was so fun. I loved it. I'm gonna look at a map because I really want to tell you the name of that one. And that's reminding me of another thing that I used to get around. Have you heard of Rome to Rio?
No.
See, I told you I have all these travel things buzzing around in my head. It's
We're gonna have to do more webinars.
It's Rome2Rio.com. And when I'm looking to travel between places, that's usually I'll look on Seat 61 for his recommendations about, take a sleeper train, take the first class, take the second class, whatever it is. And then I'll go to Rome2Rio.com, and it gives me more specifics about how to get from here to there. Okay, Padua.
I'm typing it in. Anybody else who's listening in, please feel free to type in for other listeners. Andrea, we're gonna have to have Andrea back for more travel tips.
This is so fun, and there's so much I have to learn too. I'm a total newbie really when it comes to experienced travelers out there, but like I said, I just prioritized, and it's just gotten easier and better ever since. That town in Italy is called Padua, Padua. In just crazy, it's so cool. I would definitely make time to go there. If they had a beach, it'd be the perfect town.
Well, let's see. I think we've covered all our questions. Andrea, one other question I'm sure everybody has is how are you able to do this? And I will kind of answer that, and that's that you're very good at the job you do, and it's flexible, and you can take it with you. Tell anyone who is a small business owner how you could help them and how they could get a hold of you.
You can email me at andrea@andreawarner.com if you'd like. I don't have a website. I haven't needed one yet. And I help all sizes of business, from international corporations to small businesses, with their social advertising. And so my philosophy is, if you're going to post something on social and you're a business, if it's worth posting, it's worth promoting. And Facebook is an advertising agency. That's really what they do. And they expect people to pay to use their service. And so if you post something on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, they need to make money. They need to keep their lights on. And so they need you to pay to promote it. And I think it's very fair and reasonable of them to expect that. And so what I do is help businesses get their message in front of more of the people that they want them to be in front of. And then I also do conversion optimization. So I'll help you get more customers and then help you convert more of them. Or I'll help you get more prospects and then help you convert more of them to customers. And I'll talk about that all day long, or I'll talk about travel all day long, whichever you want.
I really appreciate everything you've shared with travel. If anyone wants to reach out to Andrea with further questions about travel or further questions about how to market their business, I vouch for Andrea. She knows her stuff. She's very polite and very modest about describing what she does, but she's very good at what she does. So if you have any small business needs, feel free to reach out. I just added her contact info into the comments. Just as you've seen with her demonstrate her knowledge on how to get around when she's traveling, she does an even better job with marketing and business, and she's helped me a lot. And you should definitely get a hold of her.
Thanks. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. That's sweet.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing this really, really fun information on Croatia and Europe travel, and all of your inside tips on how to get around whenever you're traveling anywhere. Thank you for being a JGOOT subscriber.
Love it. I couldn't go without it. I literally couldn't go because I wouldn't pay that much.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you're able to put it to use.
I need to maybe put it to a little bit less use. It's just so much fun. I'm like a kid in a candy store when I see the great prices.
Well, so with that said, anyone who is more interested in getting inspired to travel more, that's what we do at JGOOT. We help find the cheapest 1% of travel deals on the internet. Are you going to get to exactly where you want to go when you want to go? Nope. You can go to Travelocity, Expedia. There are plenty of websites for that. But we focus on finding deals that are so good you can't help but think about maybe going on them. Sometimes they're 2 months out. Sometimes they're 10 months out. So if you'd like to try it out, you can go to jgoot.com/upgrade. If anyone could add that into the comments, that'd be great. If not, I'll add them later. But I think that's good. We've got a little over, hour and 15 of content, amazing content on Croatia from someone who just got back.
Oh,
and
so much.
Andrea, thank you so much for sharing. Unless we have any other comments, I think we can wrap it up.
Awesome. I'd love to hear about other people's experiences with Croatia too.
All right. Well, yeah, so feel free to add comments. This is going to be recorded and left on our Facebook page. So add comments and we can continue the discussion about Europe and Croatia and travel and all that fun stuff.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining, everyone. Happy travels.